is Rowena Dooley asking Skull citizens to report for duty. Rowena Dooley asking Sol citizens to report for duty.
Hey, what's up? Greetings. Welcome back to Soul Voices. I'm GriffinGamingRPG, and today is Saturday, March the 16th. Hope you guys are doing well. For those of you who celebrate St. Patty's Day, happy St. Patty's Day to you. Going to be having a real interesting conversation today. So much stuff has been going on. I couldn't even decide what the heck I was going to be talking about today. So I'm going to try and narrow it down to just 3 topics. There's so much stuff I would love to talk about. Man, especially there was a drop by CIG last night. For those of you who didn't see it, I know Fast Cart's got it down for his show on Thursday, so I'm not going to cover it, even though I wanted to. I'm not going to cover it. But if you have not gone to Twitter and checked out Cloud Imperium Star Citizen, well, not the Cloud Imperium, the Star Citizen on Twitter, X, I should say. Be sure to do that. You'll see a really cool thing there. I think you guys will be excited about. Hope everybody's doing well. This is Soul Voices, where we invite members of the community to come in and talk with me one-on-one about the various subjects that I bring up, whether they be from Spectrum or Reddit, from the gaming industry, or just something that pops in my head that I think is something that's going on relevant to the community that we can talk about. And as you can see, today's title is called Star Citizen P.T.S.D. P.T.S.D. We're going to talk about this a little bit later, and I hope it won't be anything that me using that term won't be offensive to anyone who deals with that condition, but I think you'll see that it's a variation on the theme, and hopefully it'll be something that maybe you'll find appropriate, because I find it appropriate to Star Citizen. So we're going to talk about that in a little bit. Let me give some shout outs here to who's here. We've got New Soul Sounds. Fast Card is here. Pops in Space. Liberty. Is that Liberty? Am I reading that right? Yeah, Liberty, NC. I don't know if that's North Carolina or if that's something else. I don't know. Maybe it's a half of a Star Trek thing. I don't know. But Liberty. Julio Reyes. What's up? Nazareth. Good to see you, Nazareth. Shipwreck is here. Haven't seen Shipwreck in a while. Good to see you. And of course, Charles, DCI, good to see you. Hope everybody's doing well on this Saturday as we are in Stella Fortuna. Ay, Shorin Bigora. We're in Stella Fortuna. So let's go ahead and get into it. First topic that we're going to be picking up from today is a topic that I picked up from, I think, on Spectrum. Was this Reddit? Spectrum? I don't remember now. I think it's Spectrum. But we're going to go ahead and drop this in the charts for you. I think Fast Card's out there, so he'll drop it in for you guys if you want to follow this link. It's kind of a long link. It's not one of the super long ones that I have to read sometimes. But yeah, I'm glad you're able to catch it too. I know usually you have a schedule, Nazareth, so it's good to see you. Thank you for stopping in. So yeah, let's go ahead and take a look at this very first topic that we have here. Is Star Trek I'm Star Trek. Oh my God, look at that! I said Star Trek earlier, and it's still stuck in my mind. Is Star Citizen a simulator or an arcade shooter? This is by Time Bomb 777 777. Is Star Citizen a simulator or a arcade shooter? It's interesting. I'm still trying to figure out what Star Citizen is. Last week's show on Sunday, Paul Shelley was on, and we were talking about what would you call Star Citizen? Because it's got all these little tidbits and bits of other things, right? It's some weird hybrid to me. I don't know if it could be classified as anything in particular, even though I think we like classifying things. But anyway, let's go ahead and take a look at this particular topic here that we have for today. And of course, there will be a link. I don't know if the link is there. Hold on a second. There will be a link that will pop up. Let me make sure it's activated, because I'll be telling you this and then it's not there. And you'll be like, Griff said that I could come in and talk to him, and there's no way for me to talk to him. So let me go back and check here. I probably don't have the link set up. If I know myself, I probably don't. Give me 1 second, gang. Timer. Q&A. Nope, it was not active. Boom. Okay, the link is now active. So if you guys want to come in, there'll be a link that'll pop up that'll let you come to our Discord, and I'll pull you in and you can chat with me about the things that we discuss. All right, let's go ahead and hop into it here. Once again, is Star Citizen a simulator or an arcade shooter? I already posted this in the FPS question forum, but figured it should be brought up here too. These are just my genuine concerns, and I'm just making a list of things that are jumping out at me. Star Citizen seems to be having a major identity crisis. Hardcore death mechanics, simulator-esque space combat movement, and an arcade FPS game. A get back into the action quickly in a game where it takes 10 minutes to get anywhere minimum feels super not awesome. I'm a PvE player, typically, and I still have issues with where the game is going. Anyone else? We have learned recently through CitizenCon and various ISCs that CIG is adding 1. Scope glint, regardless of direction, lighting, time of day, etc. 2. Time to kill increase to a point where every enemy NPC feels like a bullet sponge. 3. Combat sliding, in which the user speeds up during use for a burst-like effect. 4. Weapon nerfs to the point that it's more useful to use an assault rifle than an LMG FS9. 5. Boss enemies that take multiple magazines to kill, completely against the notion that NPCs and players are equal. If I can't get away with taking 3 magazines from a P4, why is an NPC able to? 6. Backpack reloading, which directly hinders the idea of entering combat well equipped, but is completely necessary because it takes 1.5 magazines to kill a singular NPC. 7. A mini-map. 8. The ability to scan enemies through walls. 9. A magic heal gun that makes your injuries disappear for the time being. Yes, I know, they'll still be present, but effects completely nullified. 10. The reduction of impairments based on limb damage. 11. A crosshair, dynamic or not, that kind of defeats the purpose of having a laser on your rifle when you can just put it on a different helmet and you know where your bullet is going to go. There's more, but I feel as though my point has been made. I am worried that combat is being arcadified to the point that consequences for being ill-prepared and out of position will be removed. What's next? A battle royale at a DC? Alrighty. Okay, so let's jump into this. This person outlines quite a few points. Would love to know what you guys think. Do you feel that Star Citizen is a simulator or an arcade shooter? Is it something in between? Is it some weird hybrid? Do you want to call it? I don't know what you want to call it, but if you want to call it something, I'm more than happy to come in and hear what you guys think about it. So let me bring in, I've got Fist to Face here first, and I think I've got Nazareth also who's going to be waiting to come in. Fist, how are you, my friend?
Hey, how you doing, Griff?
Good, good.
So I can understand what he's trying to say, but I kind of have to disagree a little bit, because if I'm understanding his point of view about Star Citizen becoming arcadey, it's not. I've been playing Overwatch lately, so it's not Overwatch. It's not, or even Call of Duty, where even Call of Duty has more realism as far as with guns concerned compared to Overwatch. I don't see that because you have a scope on your gun or a laser pointer on your gun makes something arcadey. You have that in real life.
Yeah, I don't think he's talking about. Let me make sure I read that correctly, because I
Okay.
don't think he's saying that the laser is an issue. He's talking about the new dynamic crosshair that they're talking about putting in. You know how they were talking about this new thing that they're going to put in, that if you just kind of point in the general direction, the gun will fire that way. You know,
Yeah.
I think that's what he's referring to. Where he is saying that what's the point of having a laser on your rifle when you can just, you know, have this thing with your helmet, and that helmet helps you with some weird dynamic aiming. You know. I think that's what he's saying. Feels like it's like being a little bit too automated, you know, like too easy. I don't know. Let me ask you this. What do you, if you had to label, I'm not looking for what the right answer is. I'm just curious what everybody thinks. What do you think Star Citizen is? Is it a simulator? If you wanted to break it into percentages, like it's this much arcade, this much Second Life, this much, you know, military sim. What do you think Star Citizen is?
You know,
what does it lean more toward?
Okay, so I haven't played Arma, and I know Arma is really realistic to from what I've understand.
Okay.
But as far as when I think of an arcade, so let me give context to what I think of an arcade. When you're talking about something that's more of even Call of Duty has realism, but Call of Duty, you don't. When you die, you get 10-second respawn. You're back at the respawn. You're back into the game. Star Citizen is more of a simulation in terms of consequences.
Okay.
Because the consequences are, like you say, like we know, if you die, where do you end up at? You end up back at the place where you've last set your spawn location at, right? And even still, okay, even if you set your spawn location on a Carrack or whatever med bed that a ship has, you still don't have your equipment. So going and running back into the fight, you're going back into the fight bare naked. You know what I mean? So there, I get what he's maybe trying to say as far as a crosshair, but a crosshair is not going to make you, in a sense, better or less than another person if you die and they can just spawn right back in and then come back and, you know, get right back into the fight.
Okay.
So to me, I look at it from a consequential point of view.
Okay, so
you know what I'm saying?
All right, so I'm fine. And so you feel that the game is what leaning if you were to say it leans more toward, let's say, since he said arcade, since he's saying these two, he's saying simulation and arcade, where would you put, if you say 60% simulation, then that means it's 40% arcade shooter. So I'm just using that because of the two terms he used. What would you where would you land Star Citizen when it comes to the things he's mentioning?
When it comes to simulation, I'll give it a high percent. Let's say 80-20.
Okay, so you think it's more 80% closer to a simulation, 20% more to having some
20%
more simplified arcadey styles type of stuff. Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Fair enough. Okay. Thank you, Fizz. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
All right. Let me bring in Nazareth next. I think Nazareth is here. He's muted. There he is. Hey, Nazareth. Is he there? If you're there, I can't hear you. I saw you unmute. Okay. I'm going to move him back to the green room again. Maybe he's got an audio issue. I'll bring in Pops and I'll check back with him in a second. Pops, are you there?
Yes, I am.
Yes, sir. How are you?
All right. Happy Saturday.
Same to you.
All right. This is my opinion of the game, and I do want to say that this is my first encounter with a sim game.
Okay.
But I do think it. Man, I almost want to put Star Citizen in its own category.
Okay.
Because, all right, you have survival.
Okay.
You can base build. You can, you have to eat. So you have that element. Well, it's first person shooter. It is an arcade to me, as far as you have the racetracks, the indoor racetracks where you can just go and kind of jump over certain things. It is a strategy game. We don't have strategy yet. Well, I guess if you could do it, but real true in-depth strategy. It is going to be an exploration game. It's going to have science in it. So it kind of, I don't, a jack of all trades, and
Okay.
whether or not it's the master of all or master of none.
Okay. All right. Fair enough. Fair enough. So let me go back then and raise these points. These are the new, some of these are the new features that CIG is adding. And the poster seems to be saying that these things seem to be shifting it more toward arcade, more simplified gameplay. So some of these things that I read off, do you think, like, for example, when we go in and kill a boss now, like one of the things I have a complaint about, when you're doing, let's say you're doing one of the Crusader missions on the platforms and you've cleared out all the enemies and now you're waiting for the boss to show up.
The boss to show up, right?
I don't mind if the boss showed up and it was like an intel way of telling me, like, in other words, like, you know how when you're on your way to the platforms, you have the intelligence briefings that are going on. If I got something that said, you know, the boss is on the move, something like that, that would be cool to me. Okay, that would be like an in-game, somebody's using satellites or something and we know the guy's moving, right? What I don't like is the fact that a marker comes up telling me exactly where the boss is, right? And then when so now there's no real, I don't have to worry about anything on my way to the boss. I can just run straight to the boss. And then on top of that, to this person's point, when I get to the boss is so heavily armored that I've got to like lay off like maybe 3 clips or three mags into the boss before they die. Now I don't have to do that with anybody else in the game, but anybody else, I can hit them 2 or 3 times, they're gone. Boss, I got to literally put in like maybe 40 rounds in them to kill him. Okay.
Yeah.
So the question is that a balance issue? Is it maybe just temporary? Is it just something that CIG is doing to make us feel like the boss is important? But that, I think that's what this person is talking about. You know, is it become too unrealistic? Maybe that's the word. Is the game becoming unrealistic?
Unrealistic. Well, it's a game. First, well, I'm just gonna say it's a game. First of all, there's no.
But the idea of a simulation is to recreate reality, right? The idea of a simulation is to simulate reality. And this person is asking, is the needle starting to swing more away from simulator to arcade game?
Well, I'm going to address the point about the boss thing.
Okay.
I mean, okay. I believe I forget which game it was. It was so long ago, man. Like over 10 years. Where you killed and then a juggernaut came out, right? Which was hard to kill. I guess if Star Citizen used a person in a mech outfit, that could explain away, you know, the reason for all of the, you know, 3 magazine kind of a thing. I'm right now, the way that stands, it's not my favorite thing to do. I would rather be on an even keel. Okay. But you know, you know, if you shoot me, I shoot you. You know, right? And the better person wins. But arcade-ish, it's touching. It's borderline touching on. I could think that if they put it in a lore, maybe this boss is in a mech suit or something.
So to your point, so if the boss came out, let's say the boss did come out in like a mech suit, right? Yeah, you know, something like that. Do you think that would be a better because the boss pretty much is just in heavy armor when they come out. It's a different looking armor, but it's regular armor, right? So I think that kind of is what maybe dispels the fact that why it takes so much to kill this person if they're wearing the same thing that everybody else like killed wore, right? But if they're wearing like a mech suit or something like that, then maybe we in our brains it would click like, okay, that's why it took a little bit more.
That's why
to kill
exactly.
Them, right?
That's all I'm saying. They couldn't come up with.
All right, fair enough. All right, so you feel it. Okay, so I'm gonna ask you the same question I asked Fist. Where would you land it in relation to from 1 to 100? If you were to say this is how much simulation it is, I'm going to assume that whatever the other else is arcadey. Where would you put it? 60%, 80%, 50%? Where would you put it's this much simulation to you?
But right now, today, I'm going to say 70.
70% simulation, 30% arcadey. Okay, 70-30. Fair enough. All right, Pops. All right. Thank you much, brother. All righty, that's Pops in Space. Let's see if Nazareth is back. Nazareth, are you there? His microphone is still muted. And I'm going to give him a countdown of a 3, a 2, Oh, there he is. Hey, Nazareth.
Yeah, I did it. Me and Mike issues. Well, that's trying to do Discord on your phone. Hello.
No worries. We can hear you now. How are you?
I'm good. How you doing?
Good. Got some thoughts?
I do.
Okay.
And a lot of Pop's stuff was actually really on the money.
Mm-hmm.
But I also very much agree with the first half of the post.
Okay.
And I'm going to bring up a couple points.
Okay.
So cut me off. So one, Star Citizen has had an identity crisis since the beginning.
Okay.
They launched the entire Kickstarter with, I want to make a physically realistic thruster system.
Mm-hmm.
They launched 1.0 without that and getting away from that, and super arcadey, super G-force intensive maneuvers in Arena Commander.
Mm-hmm.
Very much not realistic.
Mm-hmm.
But some of the poster's points, crosshairs and med guns, that's 90% of all shooters.
Okay.
So, and I've played Arma.
Mm-hmm.
And if Arma is the gold standard of FPS
mm-hmm.
simulations, nobody wants that.
Mm-hmm.
Arma community is a very specific community. There's a reason why there's only one Arma.
Mm-hmm.
And I would venture a guess that not a whole bunch of more games should be made as Arma clones.
Mm-hmm.
On the other hand, Star Citizen and every game evolved greatly and radically in development, as we still are, unfortunately, with Star Citizen.
Mm-hmm.
So my best and favorite example is Halo, the first Halo game.
Mm-hmm.
Started out as an RTS Mac-only game.
Mm-hmm.
In the middle of development, that they thought the middle was development, they changed it to a third-person shooter.
Right.
Then Microsoft bought Bungie, and it became a first-person, Windows-only Halo game.
Mm-hmm.
Star Citizen is still trying to figure out what it is. I mean, they won't know until 1.0.
Mm-hmm.
And so I think a lot of the things that we're going through right now with a lot of the things that people are having problems with, arcadey or not, it's nothing is binary with genre discussions.
Okay.
Looter shooters didn't exist until Borderlands made the genre.
Mm-hmm.
Extraction shooters, I don't think existed before Tarkov.
Mm-hmm.
And so on down the list. These genres don't exist until they're made, and then people try and use those games to categorize other games.
Mm-hmm.
And so I don't think Star Citizen fits nicely into a arcade or not arcade. And one of the biggest things, and this is my final point, that a lot of the weapon changes are for, even though I could discuss that for the next half an hour, is to give the player the ability to make a decision before they're dead.
Mm.
So, as one of the core facets of game design, when you're designing combat, is make sure the player has agency at all times.
Right.
If you have a sniper on the ridge and you don't see him and you're just dead, you walk out of your ship and you're dead. you log off for the day. That's it. You're done.
Right.
But if you're told, hey, there's a sniper looking at you because you looked up at the ridge and he's there, you had the opportunity, you had the means to protect yourself, to defend yourself, to find cover at the very least. And so a lot of the combat changes, a lot of gun changes are for that purpose. And gun changes, much like StarCraft or Age of Empires, and I assume shooters as well. I mean, I know CSGO has a lot of balance changes. It's an infinite and ongoing struggle.
Yep.
There will always be balances.
Always, yep.
5.0 will have balances. 16.0 will have balances. Star Citizen into Infinum, Star Citizen 2 will have balances because it will never be perfect. Everyone's going to have a problem. And to end off my entire spiel, this is not our game. Yep. This is not your game, my game, the poster's game. This is CIG's game.
Let me ask you, for the record, if you had to land it again, I'm just asking everybody so I can kind of see what folks feel. If you had to say 1 to 100 simulation, and then the rest of it is arcadey or arcade-ish or whatever you want to call it, where would you land Star Citizen in its current state? In its current state.
Current state. In 322?
Mm-hmm.
Oh, 323.
Whichever one you want to pick.
In 323, I think, because it really depends for me on each thing, and each thing isn't done. Like the med gun thing.
True.
It's very arcadey. That's like 90% arcadey because it's a gun you shoot health into people. But like on spaceship flying, it's very physicalized currently. Moving cargo, very physicalized. Most games just do push button cargo.
Right.
So it's a very hard one for me. I think I'd put it definitely over overall. 50 for realism.
Okay.
To kind of just boil it down. Okay. But I don't know how it would be, and it would really depend on which patch and where they're at with it. Because there's obviously it's in space, so there's going to be some arcadiness because you don't want to take your helmet off and explode and freeze and boil your blood out.
Right.
And so health systems are arcadey. And I was actually in a discussion about this with my brother earlier. My definition of arcadey is probably different than many people's. That is basically video gameized. And I know arcadey is a specific kind of video game, but any QOL, almost literally every QOL, is a move towards arcadiness. If you make a UI easier to use, well, that's not realistic. UIs aren't easy to use. They're fumbly. They're awkward. Have you ever tried using 2 different messaging apps?
Yeah.
We only have one currency, one messaging app, one cell phone manufacturer. It's very gamey. I would call it gamey or arcadey. I would use the 2 interchangeably. And that's different from most people.
Okay.
So I'd put definitely above 50% realism. But again, it's finding its footing still.
Fair enough. All right, Nazareth, thank you very much. Good to have you drop by, man. Thanks for stopping in. I'm glad you finally got a chance to hang out with us. Thanks. All right, let me bring in North End Trooper next. North End, are you there?
Yes, sir. How are you?
I'm pretty good. How are you?
Not too shabby.
Good.
So kind of go on the basis of what arcade or simulation is, especially when it comes to on the FPS side. A couple of games that come to mind are your Division and Division 2, where your bosses are a lot more tankier, and their move sets don't change as much as compared to the little minions. And there's very little lore on what that boss is, what they represent, and who they are, and why you're going after them, other than just to shoot them, click on the face. Versus, I'll use Escape from Tarkov. Those bosses have stories of who they are. They're a little bit tankier, but they have different move sets and what their skill sets represent. So if I were to take that on a spectrum and try to figure out where Star Citizen lands between those 2 games, I'd say it's kind of around more towards the Division side.
Okay.
And I'm going to lean this more. I'm not saying blame, but I think the lore team needs to pick up the slack a little bit and give these bosses a little bit more of why they're the best in the bunch. Why do people follow this guy? Does he have a specific skill set or move set that puts him above the rest of his colleagues?
Okay.
And so it'd be interesting to see, when you do, let's use a bunker where let's use 2 bunkers. One bunker, this guy is a tank. He's got the top tier armor. He's slow to move, but it's getting you know what you're getting yourself into saying, I'm going to take on Colonel Tank.
Right.
So you're going to need explosives, you have to watch for your cover, so on and so forth. Then on the other bunker, you got a guy who's basically like a Nine-Tails ninja.
Yeah.
He's got light armor, but he's very hard to hit and he's quick to evade. So you have to adapt to that.
Yeah.
Because they're not implementing this, to me, it's more on the arcade side. If they were to add special movesets on a boss or skill sets, say I don't know, they hack your power suit or your suit or your HUD, and your HUD dies and you lose ammo count. And they give more of a backstory on there, then I could see it be more on the simulation side. But for right now, I think there are some points to the post.
Yeah.
But when we discuss these things, at least for me, there's a difference between bitching and complaining. As a complainer, you need to have a solution to better the game. So I think if they were to add something that's more unique to that specific person that you're trying to attack to, then it won't be as arcadey anymore. It would go towards more of the simulation where you actually have to prepare because we all agree that Star Citizen's it's a thinking man's game. So if you're going to this bunker and you see Colonel Tank, you know what you're getting yourself into and you have to prepare for that. Versus major ninja, you have to know what you need to prep for. Don't go heavy. You're probably going to be high dexterity as well.
So let me ask you a question. Then. Do you think? Yep. I love the parallels you made in the sense of that, because let's go back to, I'm going to use Siege of Orson, right? When you're in siege, you're getting these briefings, right? When you're on the tram on your way in to go after these enemies. And let's just say that if the lore was built out a little bit more, that each time we got into the tram, we went to a new area, we're being told a little bit more detail about who it is we're going after, even though they give a little bit of that now. And let's say we go back to what Pop said earlier, is that or what you just said, you said like maybe this particular boss is much more agile, light armor but faster, or is this more of a sniper? Maybe this one over here, this guy over here, he's got some type of rail gun, whatever, but there's some distinctiveness to the different bosses. My question is, and this is to everybody, not just to North End, because I was thinking of it as he was talking, is the problem the fact that we're in alpha? In other words, those suggestions and those ideas are possibly on the plate, but for now, this is what we do. And the reason why I'm saying that is because the original poster here, and this happens a lot of times with postings, and I don't want to read into stuff too much, but just after reading so many postings, a lot of times it seems like postings are written based upon the fact that people are worried about if this is the final product versus if this is just what we have for right now. And so they're not presented as a question. They're presented more as a definitive statement of this is the game. And I realize that all we have to go on is what we have in our hands, right? But do you think that maybe that will be the evolution? Because the things you suggested, I think, would be fabulous because they would dictate everything. To Nazareth's point, they would dictate what weapon I take, what armor I wear, or who in our group is more ready to deal with this particular person. Maybe I'm not, because I was prepared to be more of a tank, where we need somebody who's agile to go in. Do you think that maybe that may be the issue too, that the reality is that we're still in alpha, things are still being developed, and that these are great things to suggest to make sure that CIG knows we're aware of it? Because I think maybe that's the thing we should be in, because I worry about when people post, they think that, is the game going to be more of an arcade shooter? And I don't know that that's the concern, but I don't know. What do you think?
I think it really boils down to more of a principle, basically, how the devs handled where we are right now in the stage of this game development.
Okay.
Because we're still technically alpha, they're more concerned about core features and technicalities before they get into the content.
Yeah.
So from that basis, I think this is just a wash of a post. But on the flip side of the coin, it's important to bring this up now, right? So if they haven't thought about it, at least there's now a bug in their ear. Yeah. Because if we bring this up right before the game releases, there's probably too much work already done where they can't go back and implement this. Where it's like now, it's like, okay, we got the core done. Now we can start looking more into the lore and exactly who these bosses are and how they're going to act. And it's going to be easier to. They won't develop tech debt for bosses if they start thinking about it now. So there's two sides of the coin on it, but really, I think. Somebody like me who doesn't go on Spectrum very often just because I don't have the time for it, love seeing, and this is for you in the show, that when you bring this to light, it's a good talking point. And hopefully, devs get to jump in and see what this is a problem. We have solutions, and they go, oh, we never thought of that.
Okay, fair enough. All right, North End, thanks so much, brother. Appreciate you.
Thank you, sir.
Alrighty. We're going to bring in Red Bear 1. Red, how are you?
Yes, I'm back.
How are you, my friend?
Yeah,
I haven't talked to you in quite some time. You doing well?
Yeah, I was a bit busy with work, etc.
Okay.
Well, I got some time again to come back. I noticed on this number 6, the backpack reloading.
Okay.
And I was thinking about that myself as well. And at the moment, there's some other people have a different opinion. That's a very good idea, but I think it's a bad idea. I'm actually agreeing with this time bomb character. I think it removes the whole be prepared into battle totally. I think it's not a quality of life. It's just watering down the thought before entering the combat. I would suggest make it a 2-stage, like reload from the backpack to on your suit, and then from your suit onto your on your weapon again. That way you cannot just on the fly reload and go on. I think that takes away from the whole perspective that you have only so much magazines left on your suit. Also, we have suits that can have like a lot more ammo than the light armor. That's a backdraw of having a light armor. But if you have a backpack, you can have as much, almost as much as the heavy suit armor. So I think that was a bad idea from CIG this case. I hope they will throw it in the bin, in my opinion.
Okay, like when we have to reload like armor, like weapons, magazines and stuff, it doesn't bother me that much.
No.
When I saw the
part of the game.
Yeah. When I saw the way they wanted to do it, I mean, there are plenty of times when I'm loading and obviously you run out of ammo, you think you've got something on you and you don't, and you've got to go in your backpack and get it.
Right.
But I'm trying to figure out what would be the real world simulation of that. Like, what is the real world simulation of that? Because even doing what we do in the game now isn't real.
Yeah, the real world simulation would be take off your backpack, take out a couple of magazines, put it on. Yeah, that's what's really going to happen.
Exactly, right? So I'm trying to find out what's the happy medium.
I thought I had a happy medium already.
Oh yeah,
because you take it out from the backpack on your suit first.
Okay,
and then it's like the old-fashioned reloading again.
Okay,
and it's like a 2 stairs instead of right away into your weapon.
I kept thinking, I think you can put on. Somebody correct me if I'm wrong, and maybe you'll know, Red. I want to say I can carry 5 things. Usually, I carry a P6 or AO3, some type of sniper rifle. I'll carry something like a S71, and I carry a pistol. I usually put two mags for the sniper, 2 mags for the rifle, and then 1 for my pistol. That's usually what I have on me. So I think it's like 5 positions. Yeah, maybe 6. Maybe there's 6. Then I thought, well, maybe they allow you to put stuff on your leg armor, right? Maybe that would be a way to expand it, right? Because I still want to have that feeling of, loading, right? I still want that. Now, what CIG said they're doing is when you pull the armor out of your backpack, though you're not seeing it being pulled out, it takes longer. Now, the question becomes how long, right? Because if we were to say, like you said, if we were to take our backpack off, put it down, put our stuff, put it back on, that would take time. Time is the factor, not the mechanic, right? If they make the time too short, then you're right. Then you feel like you're just like this ever-ending, infinite, being able to have ammo. But if I honestly have to wait, like, I don't know how long, because 5 seconds can feel like forever, right? But if I have to wait 5 seconds or 6 seconds for that reload process to happen, then that's the factor. Time is the factor, not the mechanic, right? So I wonder if CIG, if that's going to be the things they've got to balance. I don't know. What do you think?
Yeah, another thing. I was doing yesterday the first rate out of 5 for this nice upgrade, and everybody knows. And I just reloaded my ammo magazine on my suit, in a couple of seconds. So I really have no clue what the problem is to going into the. You press I. You press a few times on the menu for the whatever ammo you have. And you press I again, and you go.
Yeah.
I mean, what's the problem?
Well, I'll tell you this. There's some other fixes that CIG talked about in the past that maybe will be impactful later. And I don't know if they're going to still do this. But remember, they talked about that our personal inventory, in other words, how much we can carry on us, is going to get limited at some point, right? There's only going to be so much.
Yeah.
And to me, that might be the other factor, too, that balances things out. So in other words, I can't load up my backpack with 80 mags of you know,
Yeah.
you know what I mean? There may
True.
be just a general restriction that comes up over time that says I can only put 8 extra or 6 extra mags in my backpack along with whatever else I have. So that may be a factor too. You know, again, because we're in alpha, it's just so hard to tell, right?
Yeah.
But I do.
Then you get a different problem later on.
Yeah, right. Exactly.
Because you give them first something people like or kind of get used to.
Yeah.
Because quality of life.
Yeah.
And then you have to snatch it away again, which is even worse.
Well, the bag of holding, right? I mean, the infinite inventory thing has always been something that, you know, we knew was going to change. And it's unfortunate. But again, it becomes a part of testing. You know, the idea is to make those things accessible to you to test. Now, some people may say you should have gave it to us in the first place to test it that way to see if it works. I don't know which one's better.
I think it's a bad idea to not to get people to get used to too easy quality of life stuff. Because if you have to reverse it, people will up in arms to get it back again. Yeah, you see it at master modes or anything else they have changed or have to roll back. People will scream from the roofs, and then they have to either bow down and roll it back again because that's what people are used to now. I made a suggestion not to decrease the travel times from I don't know what it was from what's it called. Port Olisar to Hurston was like 15-20 minutes. Remember?
Yeah, back in the day.
That?
Yeah.
And I said I better not do that because if you ever think the need, you have to increase it again because some other game mechanics come in that validates that you have to have it in. And then people will be very angry.
Well, I can tell you now, they're going to be angry already. They're going to be angry already because you and I remember when it was 15 minutes to make that trip. And if it was still at that time crossing Pyro, people would just go home and come back the next day. I don't know. I know what you're saying, though. It's not to be funny. What's going to happen when insurance kicks in, right? You know, people are used to getting their ships. Remember that one time when they raised the times up and people went crazy? So
I thought it was a great idea.
Yeah. All right. All right, Red. Thank you for stopping in.
I'm serious.
I know.
It was a great idea.
I didn't bother me. I was happy for it to move up. I'm just saying people went crazy because I know it's coming. You know what I mean? I know it's coming. It doesn't bother me, but I know other people, they went completely nuts when that happened. So, and that's going to happen again, by the way. All right, buddy. Let me move on. Thanks. All right, let me get Admiral Kusanagi in. I'm running a little late here. I got to get on to our other things. Admiral, how are you?
Good afternoon, sir. Good afternoon.
Hey.
So, where do you want me to begin? Number one? Scope killing. Stupid idea. If I was going to be an assassin, that was like the thing I wanted to do in Star Citizen. I'm going to try to be my best, stealthy and whatnot. And to think that, and you're going to keep, your back to have the sun to your back, so you don't give away your position and so forth. But this is just automatic. If you look through your sight, now you have a flashlight on top of your head that is looking down at people. I mean, what's the point of that? The idea is you want to bring in ground warfare a little bit more. Okay. So you're going to use armored vehicles. You're going to use Spartans to get in there. More protective means and measures. You're going to have counter snipers. You're going to have ships looking for snipers. So they're kind of. It's just I don't like the idea.
Okay.
There are ways to offset that. All the time to kill stuff and the weapons and all that stuff.
What's the alternative?
You said
there's ways to offset.
It is. I mean, let it be so that the sun, will pick up on a scope. So like you have to flip it up when you're ready to look through it, or other means or something like that. I think it's usually like a sniper's like they know the first shot they make. The game is now everything is in motion, so they only have so much time to do stuff because people are gonna start looking for you. So it doesn't make any sense. I really don't like it. We're also getting all the other bullet sponge and weapon nerfs and all that stuff. We're getting armor into play. We're getting it for ships. I think we could see armor be a bigger thing with the boss fights, because it does take like magazines to take these guys down. But if they're quote the way they do the armor system right now, if it's just like say at more health points, and they're if you're using heavy armor, you got so much, then light machine guns or something like that maybe doesn't work that well. Maybe you have to use a heavier, like a whatever the light machine gun is would be better instead of a P4AR.
So let me ask a question. What's this becomes a very difficult question, I think, for everybody. The aspect of realism, right? When it's very easy to just automatically say, well, it's just a game, but then gamers come to a game that is advertising itself as wanting to be able to create a real world that we can do some real world things in. When is it not a bullet sponge? And let me set the map here, because I'm just asking this as a general question.
When you say bullet sponge, just say that a person can soak up rounds and doesn't do anything.
Yes, it means that everybody else I killed with 6 bullets, but this guy I killed, it took 59 bullets, right? Okay.
Yeah.
So my question becomes, and this is always a battle with us with Star Citizen, right? It's 900 years in the future. Will people die from being shot 3 times when they have some type of armor on in the future? Is that realistic? Should it 900 years from now, should it take 20 rounds into somebody's armor to take them down? In fact, a lot of times we don't die. When we get hit, we get injured, right? And I'm assuming that's, instead of being like an insta kill, a lot of times we take a wound, and then there's, depending on how bad the damage level is, the pool is, then we say you've got an hour and a half, or you'll have 30 minutes or 15 minutes, whatever. So how do we strike the balance between those people who come to the game who look for me being able to shoot someone, or let's say that the NPC shoots someone? And man, I do have some problems with the sniper thing that you mentioned earlier, because we've talked about this before, that the weapons that are being used to do certain levels of killing right now are way off, right? So in the future, what is realistic at that point? And I don't know what the answer is, Admiral. I'm just asking it rhetorically. What is realistic? Is it 900 years from now, will there be bosses that have to take 4 packs of mag because the armor and technology allows for that? Or does that take it too far ahead of us and too frustrating for us as gamers of today, where I don't want to have to sit there and unload 50 rounds of things? Maybe 5 is enough. I don't know what the answer is.
Well, let's look at like current technology and armor. So
Okay.
Body armor is usually like, you can use like a lead plate, but usually if I'm using, say, like a Kevlar, I shoot it with a 9mm and it hits you in one spot, and it can get that. It can get like kind of like a peppering.
Right.
But once you shoot that one spot, like close to that one spot over and over, it defeats that armor and can then get through.
Right.
And I think what we're looking at here is that when you get better and better armor and better weapons to defeat that armor over the course of, well, say through 900 years, which I think is way too high with what we were using, but you're able to chip away at that armor and defeat it. And I think that's what's going on here, is that we're chipping away at the armor and the health of the armor to get through it, to get to the person.
Right.
And so at that way of looking at it, it makes sense to me.
Okay.
If they're using right now just like higher HP to do that, so if you're wearing heavy armor, you've got 10,000 HP instead of 6,000 HP, or however they want to do the metrics, then that would make sense. But in terms of that, I'm okay with that. But like other things like the scope glint, right now I have a big issue with the way weapons kind of shoot. I've been playing Helldivers 2, and I'm just having too much fun the way I feel like the gun kind of like shooting, and I'm like, it's taking up a lot of, like, when you shoot like an M60 machine gun or an M249 SAR automatic rifle, squad automatic weapon, you're getting a lot of that energy into your shoulder and stuff like that, so you're moving around a lot. And I just don't feel that yet in Star Citizen. It feels like just my arms moving, and maybe, I don't know, it just feels, I want more of a feel that Star Citizen to kind of get that. I feel like they're just a little off.
Okay. All right.
I want more power too. I want it to feel powerful, because we are 900 years in the future. Where these should be more powerful bullets. If we're still using ballistic ammunition, that should be able to be more charged in that.
You had me, then you lost me on that, because I would also say 900 years from now, I shouldn't have to feel it. The power should be there, but I shouldn't have to feel it. 900 years in the future.
Okay. Well, they're probably using some type of other again, you're getting bigger. There should be more and more power, energy coming out of if you're using ballistic ammunition.
But the technology
and at
should
the
go
same
along with the
time,
power.
what you're going off of is that you have some type of compensator in the stock.
Nope. I'm saying there's something in the technology that allows me to have greater power, greater control without having to worry about all that. That's what I'm saying. If the progression of the weapon goes further, then they're also going to try to make sure that the person who's firing the weapon has greater control, less impact. If I'm looking in the future, that's what I'm saying. See, I can go the opposite way with what you're saying on that too.
Yes, you could. I mean, like Aliens, for instance, they use like caseless ammo. I think when they were describing the pulse rifle, it was like blah 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 caseless ammo. And I remember that back in the 80s, were like caseless ammo. Like, is that a thing? Like, how do you shoot that weapon without like a bullet case?
Right.
Because it doesn't sound like they're using a powder charge inside the actual behind the bullet to shoot it.
Right.
Now, how we're shooting these bullets in a vacuum of space is another question. So, do we need to see projectiles coming out the side of it? What is actually going on?
Right.
I would love them to kind of just get some lore behind that. That'd be kind of.
That's a good point. Okay, thanks, Admiral. Good points. All righty, let's move on to the next topic. That's good stuff. Admiral's giving us some good military and realistic stuff. Again, it's a rhetorical question for me as to technology and the balance between gameplay, what people can identify with today in their brains and they can relate to very easily, and what are the things that we can move them a little further down the road in the future and make them think a little differently. Striking that balance is very interesting. And, I think a lot of gamers are very much in tune with the way wargaming is done today, but in the future, it's very difficult to kind of picture what is it going to be like then. And I don't even know, but we can always have ideas. Anyway, okay, that's that one, gang. Let's move on to the next one. This next one is the letter from the chairman. Letter from the chairman. You guys know Chris Roberts dropped a letter on yesterday or day before yesterday. Anyway, and it was unexpected, as they usually are. Folks always look for them to be at the beginning of the year, but Chris seems to drop them whenever he feels it's the time to drop them. And I think this was a good time to drop one. We know that there's been a lot of things going on at CIG since last year, since CitizenCon, leading up to this year, beginning of this year. There were rumors, there was conversations, there was talk, all types of stuff about what's been happening with CIG. And Chris spent some time outlining his newsletter, his letter to us, to me, a decent amount of detail. We also got to hear from Benoit from Turbulent as well, and we got to hear from Richard Tyre in the letter, which was great. It was great to hear and see their positioning at the company, where they are now, and hearing their vision also that goes along with Chris's ideas of where this game is going. And so the letter was very long. Not going to go through the whole letter, but I am going to go through 10 points that to me were interesting. There was even more, but we'd be here all day talking about that letter. So just kind of bear with me as I go through the 10 points that kind of stuck out to me. And then you guys can come in and talk to me about any of those points, or if there's something in particular you saw that stuck out, feel free to come in and share it with me. Don't forget, there's a link that pops up. You guys can come in, share your thoughts with me on this topic. So let's start out with the first one for me. Number one, Chris talked about on Squadron 42 that is taking the game from feature complete to content complete, ensuring the game has the necessary polish and feels worthy of being a spiritual successor to Wing Commander. We heard this announcement back at CitizenCon that they were moving the game into this level of saying that the game was feature complete. And now they're saying from feature complete to content complete. Features, as you guys know, are features. They're just that. They're features in the game, different things that the game is able to do mechanics wise. And then the content is obviously the content, the story, all the other things that go along with it. All that stuff is done. We don't know what this polish time will be like for CIG. There's been a lot of conjecture about what will be going on with the testing for that. There's people who are hoping that there'll be an announcement at CitizenCon. There are people who are wondering if there'll be some type of announcement during Gamescom, from an industry standpoint. There's some people who are wondering if there'll be a release of the game even this year. Some people think the release will be next year. There'll be an announcement this year, like Squadron 42 coming second quarter 2025. We don't know, but we do know that it is in the final stages of being prepared. Interestingly enough, they say in the spiritual successor of Wing Commander, and I played Wing Commander, but I didn't do Freelancer, and I've had a lot of people tell me that they see a lot of Freelancer in this game too, especially the fact that there's some dynamics in relation to trade and things like that. But anyway, this is one of the points that they want to mention, is that they've moved into this stage. Number 2, on the Star Citizen front, the teams are preparing to deliver server meshing and expanding the universe of Star Citizen to multiple star systems. For this test of our progress on server meshing, the replication layer technology, we opened our first functioning jump gates and allowed players to test traveling between our 2 systems for the first time in our history. You guys know we've seen the demonstrations in the past that were all kind of, simulations for us to get an idea of what this whole idea of moving from one system to the other would be. We've seen it a couple times, but this past weekend, not this weekend, but last weekend, the Evocati got an opportunity to spend the weekend testing the mechanic of being able to move between servers, and they were successful in that. The process of doing it worked. There was a little bit of technique that they had to do, some steps in order to make it happen, but once they figured it out and got through it, they were able to jump from one system to the next. They were not able to navigate. That wasn't a part of their test. Their test was to go in, let the system take them through automatically, and come out on the other side, which was often into a big pile of other ships. But they were able to do it. They were very excited about what they saw. They are still seeing it at the very tier 0 level of this. There weren't a lot of things for them to see other than that. That was their main focus, was just to go in and do that. And they did it successfully. The server accounts were also increased while they were doing their testing as well last weekend. They had over 350 people, I think, at one point in a server. And I think they were pushing for 400. So they've been doing a lot of work. Hats off to the Evocati for all the work that they've done. I think it was well deserved that they finally got to see something that so many of us have been anticipating for so many years. By the way, there was a person who got through it first before anybody else. And of all the names of the person, the first Evocati that got through there, his name was Mr. Trash. So how about that going into Pyro, right? All right, let's go on to the next one here. 3. We're charging full steam ahead with launching our first multi-server mesh in 4.0. For this, multiple servers work together to simulate parts of the universe. As a player, this will enable you to visit Pyro through the jump gate, where the jump tunnels transition seamlessly between game servers. Game shards will also host more players, so you should encounter more friends or foes along the way. Just talked about that. They are definitely, and we talked about this several weeks ago when we talked about what is it we felt we would really want to see happen in the game at 4.0, and one of them was definitely about capacity, more players being in the game, more people, because getting more real estate is fine, but it just makes it a bigger ghost town, right? We need to see more people, have more encounters. We also need to have the NPCs and the AI working well. But for now, the fact that more players, more of your friends, more of your org members, more strangers can all be on the server is great news. And we know that Chris Roberts has talked about he wants us to go into the thousands, and I'm looking forward to that as well. Point number 4, while we recognize that there is no definitive finish line in an online MMO, and that we will always be adding new features and content for many years to come, Star Citizen 1.0 is what we consider the features and content set to represent commercial release. This means that the game is welcoming to new players, stable and polished, with enough gameplay and content to engage players continuously. In other words, it is no longer alpha or early access. Wow. I don't know if 1.0 is beta, but they say it's not early access, and usually early access kind of ties in with beta sometimes. Now, what leaps and bounds CIG is going to do to get us there for 4.0, considering we're in 3.22, about to get 3.23, and the way it seems, 4.0 follows after that. We know they've been doing all hands on deck as far as staffing goes. We have seen CIG do some amazing things since October, and I've talked about this before in the past too. When we left CitizenCon, CIG made some bold statements. Some of the bold statements was, we're going to try and get as much of this out to you within the next year. That means 12 months from October to October. Another bold statement was at the end of the year in December, where there was an announcement that there were items that they wanted to get out to us within the next 6 months. Another bold statement. 3.22 came out at the end of the year, beginning of the year. We got that, as they said. Now they're saying in 3.23, much of what we saw at CitizenCon is all we've seen that is going to be in this next patch. That's within the 6-month window. So they've been able to hit their mark so far, and it still gives them another 6 months from now till October to be ready for CitizenCon and anything else that they want to implement. So this Star Citizen 1.0, when will that happen? If 4.0 is this year, assuming that it's going to follow 3.23, who knows? Will there be a 4.1 or 4.2 leading up to it? I don't know. But let's just say, there was rumors that it was a 2-year process last year, that by 2025, we would be in 1.0. It'll be interesting to see if that happens. We had a great discussion. Admiral Kusanagi and several of us, Colossal, some other people were talking yesterday about the original Kickstarter. And one of the statements in the original Kickstarter was that Chris wanted, now whether this happens or not, it's another story, but Chris said he wanted us that when we're playing Squadron 42, that when the player finishes Squadron 42, they can go into the persistent universe. And so that was the plan. Now, whether they meet that mark or not, it's going to be interesting. But let's say Squadron 42 comes out somewhere between, I don't even think it's going to be this year, y'all. That's me. Some people want it to be this year. I don't think so. Unless they announce it at CitizenCon and then put it out for Christmas. I just don't see it. But let's just say it comes out next year. If Squadron comes out next year, that means that 1.0 could come out next year or the year after that, even if they wanted to. But even then, I'm basing that on the way CIG has operated in the past. They're churning stuff out left and right now. So who knows, when it's going to come out at this point. We've also taken the opportunity, number 5, to move away from heavily specialized teams like actor feature and vehicle feature to a more generic gameplay teams that should allow us to be a lot more flexible and shoulder some of the heavier burdens those teams used to carry. Okay, this is really important. In other words, it's really important for them to now start dealing with gameplay. One of the things that people have been moaning about for years is where's the gameplay, right? Where are the features at? And now they're saying they're taking it all hands on deck, just like they went all hands on deck on Squadron 42. They're swinging the all hands on deck now back to the persistent universe so that those careers that we've talked about, someone mentioned them earlier, engineering, science, farming, the mercenary stuff, the black market stuff, all that stuff that they wanted to fill out, exploration, they're putting the teams on that now so that we can start having the gameplay. And to Chris's point, in order to go to 1.0, they need to have those features that are ready for it to be a commercial release. So you can understand why so much emphasis is going into shifting personnel into working on those areas. Number 6, working in tandem, Rich and I will continue to establish the strategic vision to bring to life the intended Star Citizen gameplay experience. As Rich said, over the past few months, our teams have been busily planning upcoming major milestones for the persistent universe, culminating in what we refer to as Star Citizen 1.0. They've been working toward that, okay? 7, as part of this, we made a difficult decision to ask the Los Angeles development team, which has increasingly been providing support for the main development teams based in Manchester, to relocate to join other teams, primarily in Manchester, but also in Austin and Montreal. Los Angeles, while shrinking, will still be an important office for the company, but one focusing on the business support role with marketing, finance, legal, and H&R. Now, we kind of had talked about this before with some of the folks in Soul Citizens, the folks who hang out with us, not just the team. This idea of the company basically doing a whole lot of restructuring and movement. For those of you who remember a couple years ago when CIG first started working on the Manchester offices, they told us that they were looking for the capacity of that office to be at 1,500 people. That was back when they had like 832 people working for them. And they were kind of almost doubling their numbers. And some people got a little nervous because they were like, this is during COVID. Is this a real good business idea right now with all that's going on, the volatility of the economy, for them to be making such an ambitious move of building this new headquarters and then almost doubling their staff? But evidently, as we all know, when people who work in business, they do business plans. You have to do business plans for 2 years, 5 years, 3 years, 10 years out. And evidently, this may have been a part of their whole map. So CIG, after the absorption or the bringing in, I shouldn't say absorption, the merging with Turbulent is becoming a part of CIG. Their numbers went from 800 to just under about 1,100 folks. And they've grown since then to about just under 1,200. I think they're between 1,100 and 1,200 people now. So there's still room for growth. There's still applications on their website. But what they are doing and what they have done is start asking people to move. You guys remember a couple years ago, Disco moved from LA to Manchester. He said it was good for him to do that because the hours were killing him working out of the LA, trying to match up times with folks in Germany and the UK. And that was a decision that he made just a couple of years ago. But CIG has now been moving more and more folks to come over. But they are still going to maintain the LA office. That office may shrink. Obviously, if staffing goes, they can reduce their footprint, reduce their expenses in Los Angeles, because I can imagine it's very expensive for them to maintain the office that they have there. And they said that folks will also go to the Austin office and Montreal office. So they've kind of shifting things a little bit more, right? That idea of having LA might start to become, as they mentioned, just for certain areas of the company that are much more along the lines of the administrative side of the company. Okay. And let's see, number 8. As part of this reorganization, we sadly waved goodbye to the Persistent Universe Live director, Todd Pappy, as he has moved back to the U.S. from the U.K. last year for family reasons. And after much soul searching, I determined that we cannot afford to have the role remote from the main team in Manchester for a good portion of the year. It is a sad moment as Todd worked diligently for the last 9 years on Star Citizen, making many important contributions and providing excellent leadership of his teams. I wish him the best of luck and look forward to seeing what he does next. So, of course, we all love Todd Pappy, the guy with the great eyes, right? And of course, we miss him. Todd, we really do. I know the Soul Citizens sent a message to you, but I think all the community truly appreciate the hard work, the labor, the information that you share with us in a very understandable and intelligent way, so that we could get what was going on behind the scenes. But that is a change, and not just the first. There are several other people who we know have left the company, and obviously, it's a big thing to move. Wow, to another country, and if that was never on your family's plan and radar, and your children and a wife, and you've got family and relatives, sometimes it's a hard decision. And Todd, obviously, and rightfully so, felt family was priority, and hey, amen to that. No problems with that. But the Star Citizen family definitely has both lost, but also remembers a very, 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 very important contributor to this project. So Todd, we wish you the very best. Number 9, this is Chris. I will miss the sunny skies and beaches of Los Angeles, but for Star Citizen and Squadron 42 take precedence. The journey is longer and more difficult than I anticipated 11 and a half years ago, but the final destination is so much more exciting and fulfilling. I would have never in my dreams expected to have the opportunity to build something on the scale and ambition of Star Citizen. And because of this, I feel incredibly blessed by all of your support, and I am determined to finish strong. Some of you all will remember a couple of years ago, Chris moved over. He said he was going to be over in Manchester. He and the family were going to be there for a while. I do remember, if I'm remembering correctly, that Sandy and the kids had come back to the States not too long ago, within the last some odd months, if I'm remembering correctly. And now Chris is back in the States. And evidently they were back in LA, but now with LA downsizing and becoming much more administrative, it looks like he's going to be going to the Austin office and working out of there, which is definitely much more on the development side. So yeah, that's what's going on with that. Big change in his life again. And last but not least, number 10. Soon we will be leaving the Stanton system as we venture into the lawless wastelands of Pyro system in Alpha 4.0. Thanks to server meshing and beyond, the Star Citizen 1.0 twinkles on the horizon. The future has never been so bright. Okay, so I'm going to, those are the 10 points I'm going to mention. Like I said, there's a lot of stuff in the letter. If you guys haven't read the letter from the chairman, please find time to read it. I think it gives some great updates and some good insight as to where the company is now and also projecting where they would like to go in the future. So let's bring in Pops in Space. Pops is here. Pops, are you there?
Yes, I am.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Yeah. What is there point you want to talk about from the letter from the chairman?
Well, basically for me, it's the feeling that this letter had, and it was to me an extension of CitizenCon this year.
Okay.
It was where Chris got to say, we held the line, and I've done a lot of things that I wanted to do, and I've got to see them come to, fruition. I got to see them, flower, and and we're almost ready to show you. So this letter to me, it's kind of an extension of that, but it's more about we are now moving into a restructuring. Everyone's moving here. We're I guess restructuring teams. I don't know if that's exactly what they're doing, but like you said a few moments ago, where the teams are now able to tackle things better. So I guess in my mind, that's a restructure.
Well, the restructuring happens, and restructuring is kind of a funny word in a corporate sense. It means some other things, right? But what they are doing is redirecting resources, right? Which is what they did before. Remember, a couple of years ago, they said we're moving resources over to work on Squadron 42. Now they're saying we're taking those resources and we're bringing them back to now focus on the persistent universe. Yeah. Yep.
And it just gave me that feeling. I mean, Alpha has been 12 years plus or 11 years moving in that direction. So this kind of, I mean, I know I'm reading more into it, but it's just a hope. This is just my hope.
Okay.
My hope that maybe beta's not that far, maybe a year or two.
I don't know if they're doing a beta, Pops. That's what I'm not sure about, because
exactly.
the only reason why I'm saying that is because he says we're not alpha and we're not early access. Now, usually, this isn't always the case. You know this from games. Sometimes early access is post beta, right? People go in and they test some stuff, and early access is like you get early access to the game. He doesn't mention beta. That doesn't mean that there won't be a beta, but he does say that there'll be a Star Citizen 1.0. There's a resetting of the clock, right? We're leaving the whole 4.0 alpha, whatever, to now being Star Citizen 1.0, which he says is a commercial release. And if it's a commercial release, it'd be kind of hard to call it a beta, but then again, stuff is beta out there now, and it's a commercial release. You know what I mean? So we'll have to see how he defines it. But there may be a beta.
It seems strange.
But the only reason why I say I'm not sure if there's a beta is that he says he wants to make sure that the game is stable and all the features are there. And then after that, he opens up talking about that we'll always be developing and adding to it.
Oh yeah, definitely.
So that's why I think that once we get to 1.0, we just may be at that point where the game is playable, commercially ready, which means it could be sold, right? And then we see where they go from there. And
another strange thing that he mentions, I don't want to take up too much time, but he says this is a successor to
Wing Commander.
Wing Commander.
Yeah,
I've never heard them refer to Star Citizen.
Oh my God, absolutely. Oh my God, there's so many elements of Wing Commander in this game. It'll make you go crazy, Pops. Yeah, you got to watch Wing Commander. We got to do a movie night with Wing Commander. But the game, there are so many elements to Wing Commander. In fact, just to give you a quick clue, if you look at the trailer, the opening for Wing Commander's trailer and the Star Engine trailer, they open up identically. That thing with the orchestra conductor is the same way that Wing Commander opens up. There are a lot of odes to Wing Commander in Star Citizen. Even the Hornet, the name of the what's the big ship? The
Bengal.
The Bengal. That's all references back to Wing Commander. Yeah.
Didn't know.
Okay. No problem, buddy. Thanks for dropping in. Okie dokie. Let me bring in North End Trooper next. North End.
Hi, sir.
Yes, sir.
Just want to make sure we're past the 2-minute ad break.
Oh, is it still running? Is it running?
Couldn't tell you.
I can't tell you if it's running or not because I didn't get a warning up here for some reason.
Okay, we're gonna go on faith. Okay. So for this letter kind of hit different.
Okay.
For me, I felt like it was more of a reflection for the past year versus promises for this year.
Okay.
Just looking, and like you said, it's more of an extension than CitizenCon, where it's like, look what we have done versus what we're going to promise you. One of the big things I think that he did a good job was talking about Todd Pappy breaking away from the company, and there was a lot of I don't want to say conspiracies, but it's like people were coming with some weird thoughts, and I'm glad he squashed that. And, well, a lot of us in some Pathfinders discourse believe that it was just more of it was because of family, and because of family, it should always be a first thing.
Absolutely.
So I'm glad they talked about that. Moving forward, though, it just seems like a lot of stuff that we're used to seeing promising is starting to already come into implementation. So I'm kind of curious to know, as the years go on and we pass Star Citizen 1.0, which is I'm still trying to wrap my brain around. Because I assume that's after 4.0, or is 4.0 that's replacing 4.0?
No, 4.0 is still the alpha stage of the game. When we get to 1.0, we've left alpha and early access.
Gotcha. Oh, and I wanted to say, with the early access, I feel like early access is more of an ambiguous term. It really boils down to the developer if they think the game is polished enough for people to start playing and receiving feedback. And it could be early access like it is right now with Star Citizen, or it could be games like I'm trying to think of one off the top of my head, like probably Enshrouded, where they're just trying to get more of the polish notes, like what do we miss before we get to, it's a huge wide spectrum of what games maybe
I'm glad you
that
said
land
that.
on early access.
I'm glad you said that, because early access is still not a good term to use, because early access is also used for when a game like Starfield launches and you get to get in 5 days earlier to play the game, right? Has nothing to do with testing beta or anything like that. It's just that you get early access. People pay a little extra money to get into the game a little bit earlier. I think that beta used to be the term for when you were working on something, right? And unfortunately, with and I shouldn't say unfortunately, the independent companies who don't have the funding to really push through, they were the ones that started saying you're getting early access to the game so we can work on stuff. But that's really what beta is supposed to be, it's a weird thing with that term, because people use it in different, contexts. But
yeah, I kind of feel like it's more of a cop-out term or a catch-all term. Where they really need to understand, like, we're releasing the game. Means. Here's what's done. Here's what we need feedback on.
Yep.
But that's going to take an entire profession to change, and that's not going to happen anytime soon.
Yeah, exactly. Okay.
So I guess my question is really boiling down to, and maybe this is for everybody, what are our chairman letters going to be looking like at this point forward? Because now, instead of more promises and more of a kind of look back of what we achieved and the reorganization when SC 1.0 comes out and then Squadron 42 is done,
right?
It makes me wonder, like, how are they going to convey what we're going to be looking at? It's like, you can already see it right now with Squadron 42 monthly reports. They're becoming thinner and thinner and thinner,
right?
Because they're just like, we're polishing.
Right.
Versus 2 years ago, you would read like AI core technologies being developed, and like, okay, so when are we going to see that? Versus now, we already know what the scope of the letter or the information is going to be. Right. And we're just looking for those little minute details that can spur a good conversation.
Right. It's a good point. When Star Citizen first came out, when Chris and they started doing Wingman's Hangar, the very first community show that they did. Wingman's Hangar was originally only supposed to be once a month. Okay. But it was so successful and people wanted so much information that they decided to expand it, into a weekly kind of thing. But that's because there was so much information to be able to get out. There were multiple shows, right? We've even talked about with Soul Citizens, what will we be like once the game releases, right? Because so much of our conversation is about the development process, right? And helping people understand both what we're doing now, what's been done in the past, all these things. Well, once those things are all in place, what does the conversation become at that point? And I think CIG, ISCs, SCLs, will they still be needed, or will they be different? Will they be weekly, or will they be once a month? Because the idea of talking about all the tech, and don't get me wrong, I think there'll be this dynamic of always making things better and improving from a technical development side. But I think that once it starts shifting more to the foundations are in place, then we're going to be talking about features and ideas and creativity more on the creative side. But I don't know what's going to happen later. You raise a very good question that once this thing changes, we get the letter from Chris once a year. At least that's what's kind of what it's been recently, and maybe that's what we'll still get. But what that content will be, what they'll be talking about, will the Squadron 42 letter, start back up once Squadron releases because they started working on the next episode for it? Will 6 months go by before it comes back out? I mean, will they have to do a rinse and repeat and start it all over again? We'll have to see.
Or You know, in being more of a, I don't want to say pessimistic, but probably more of a pragmatic, is they may go back to once a month release.
Maybe.
Because once there's nothing else to talk about from a development standpoint from technology. So why pump out once a week?
Yeah.
They're going to go back to a month. Who knows?
They could. And, you know, CIG has already kind of been dropping these little hints about how they don't want to tell us stuff that they want us to discover and find things in the game. So not that they still won't have the things to talk about, but, you know, there's a lot of stuff that's like, you know, red meat for us, right? They put stuff out there because it gets us going and hyped up and we're looking forward to it and blah, blah, blah. But later on, when they want to introduce a new system, you know, is there going to be an announcement for a system, or will there be just gameplay and all of a sudden someone stumbles across it? Which one will we prefer? You know, because, you know, what happens when we make the announcement? Everybody, you know, drops what they're doing and runs out and goes and does it, right? Because we saw a post or, you know, something came up via YouTube. But what happens if it's because a player discovered it, right? What happens when the player finds that wormhole that takes them into Gauss that we didn't know was put into the game all of a sudden, right? All we maybe saw was an update that came into the game and that was it, you know? I don't know. You raise good questions. You
bring up a good point, though. Is it going to be more, will it be less of game development and design and behind the curtain, or is it going to be, we're going to add into the mix more community? Mm-hmm. Like, will they, I don't know, will they interview Mr. Trash? Will he be on the show? Things of that nature.
Right, yeah. I would love for them to go back to doing, they haven't done it in a long time. Remember, they used to do Citizens of the Stars and stuff like that. It would be great. And I hope that they will continue the community relations, because I think they will, because community is so important to this game. The question is what you said, what will it look like later, right? What is it going to be later on? I think that's
I want to point out, I think Charles TC has a really good point. Mm-hmm. I think they should bring back lore, or have more
lore makers,
because right now, well, so like their in-game video right now is more or less on like new ships or new technology. It'd be kind of nice to see once a month where they take all that lore and, like, I don't want to say a slideshow, but more of an animation to show for those non-readers like me, who get more invested in the lore. And after that, they would still have a lot more information or entertainment content to push up if need be.
You know, if you remember back in the day with Around the Verse in its early days was more of a variety show. They touched on everything. Someone would, remember, they did the Bug Smashers. Someone would talk about someone in the community. They'd bring out somebody, interview a developer. You know, it was more of a variety of things. And they could easily go back to a format like that instead of spending a topic for 1 hour or for 30 minutes. They could go back and do a 30-minute show that brings, like you said, a developer is talking about something, someone who brings in and talks about the updates to lore, the Galactopedia, right? All these things could happen again. I think they're going to do stuff because I think it's important. They have one of the best connections to community than any game I've seen, in the sense of that Disco has worked very hard to create a bridge so that even though there are people who may not feel they're heard, but I think that we are heard in ways that other game companies have not done, and given a platform to connect with them.
CIG is the first one to go to this level, right? And since then, we've seen other outside of the conventions. There's other developing game studios are kind of starting to catching on, saying, "Hey, look at this as a template. And how can we inform our masses or fan base that entertains them, but also informs them? So if, like, we have to give out bad news or a delay, they're still informed. And they still feel part of the project."
Good point. All right, buddy. Thank you much, North End.
Thank you.
Alrighty. All right. Last but not least, we're going to bring in Nazarus. Nazarus, are you there? Testing 1, 2, 3. There he is.
Hello.
Yep.
All right. So I two big things I learned. One, I need to be louder about my predictions.
Okay.
Because I definitely called the letter showing up after the server meshing success.
Okay.
And we definitely discussed and found a reasonable outcome of the Tom Pappy situation, which was then revealed to be what actually happened in the letter. I definitely need to be louder about my predictions.
Okay.
By the way, on the Squadron 42 at the end of the year. I will concede in the second half of the year, if there's no marketing ramp up, then sure. But until then, I hold that we're getting Squadron Citizen Cup.
Okay.
I liked a lot of the the discussion so far on this, because it is a very reminiscent letter for the chairman, and it is interesting. It's also, I haven't read the entire thing yet, so I'll have a discussion of learning what's in it still. But a lot of the talk about moving around and things, it's been really good. And then there goes my points in my head.
Okay.
But moving people around and doing that kind of stuff, very informative in the different things they're doing. I also think that with the content stuff, with the what is a letter for the chairman post 1.0, for letters of the chairman, I don't know if there'll be a letter for the chairman after 1.0, because the last couple of letters, last 3 letters, have been all after major milestones. And 1.0 is the last major milestone, except for version 2 when everything's overhauled. Like I'd still assume we're going to get a Citizen Con every year, and he'll show up at that, and he'll do that stuff. But letter for the chairman's, so we have no precedent for anything other than that. ISCs, on the other hand, are following the development of different features and content, new ships and stuff. And we know that 1.0, I'm sure everyone here knows 1.0 is not going to include all the features that have been said, or as Paul likes to do, the promise board. And stuff like farming or in-depth cooking or fishing, might not make it into 1.0. So ISC post 1.0, I think it definitely should go back to a more variety show, or at least have shows that will fill the variety gap with the talking to the community, interviewing the people working in the game, and that sort of thing. But there's still going to be features and content that will be worked on. We're going to get more clothing drops, furniture drops, ship drops, new locations, new kinds of locations, new themes for locations, new planets, new systems. Again, farming. So we will follow the development of farming. What does development look like after 1.0? That's another very interesting question, because we've been living patch to patch. Is it going to be patch to patch, or is it going to be feature to feature? Are they going to say, we're going to work on farming, and then we'll drop farming for you guys? Much like Squadron did, where they took a feature, they said, we're going to start this feature, and then we're going to finish this feature. And then they'll move on to the next feature.
Right.
They have done a little bit of saying what they want to do with Squadron, which is, at least according to Aaron Roberts, and this was many years ago when the game was a little bit simpler, I think 2017-18, they said that when Squadron 42 releases, they will go straight on to working on to episode 2. As I've come around to the notion that that's what should happen. It is a episodic release, and we need the whole story, so it makes sense not to do too much before you get started on the next one. I can already see the internet stories like Squadron episode 2 releases, no sight of second episode.
Yeah.
But they said they should be able to turn it around in 2 years, release the second game.
Exactly.
So that's that. There was a lot of really nice things. I did like. I was interested to hear that they were dissolving mostly the LA studio. That's something me and Tree were talking about 3 months ago or something. That it seems like they're really deprioritizing the U.S. offices, and that makes a lot of sense, because as you if you go on any game dev forum ever, and you'll see talks about government grants.
Yep.
I don't know if U.S. has literally any government grants for game development.
Very true. Very true.
I know Germany has a bunch of them. I know that Manchester has a bunch of them, because that's why they have the office there.
Exactly.
Because there's a lot of grants in there. They have grants for indie studios as well, which I guess Star Citizen gets to take part in those too.
Right.
But I don't think the U.S. has any. So it makes sense to deprioritize those. I'm not sure how. I feel like they should just close the LA one. I know. Sorry for jobs and everything. That's not good. But keeping teams that have to do with marketing, like specifically, because that's like, I don't know where the video content team is that Jared works with, but there's a good example is Boeing. Okay, Boeing airplanes. When they started, they were very specific to keep their corporate office next to the manufacturing facility, so that they didn't get too far away from that notion of it's the engineering job that gets the corporate to work.
Right.
Because if you didn't have proper engineering, you would have bad airplanes and people would die. Not too long ago, several years, but not too long ago, Boeing moved their corporate headquarters to Chicago, leaving their manufacturing on the West Coast. And since that move, obviously it's not causation but correlation, their engineering quality has gone less and less and less because they're no longer serving the engineers and having the engineers be a priority, but it's now, stock prices and making their company bigger. And I'm not saying this is indicative of what Star Citizen will do, but the culture that keeps a company centralized is what will lead to, is a mark for making a good company. I'm just worried that marketing is going to, if not practically, emotionally feel alienated a bit.
Yeah. We'll have to see. It's a good point. I mean, it's a good point. This whole thing is a weird hybrid. CIG in and of itself is a weird monster, right? 5 studios around the world, different time zones, blah, 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 blah. People hopping from here to there. I don't think
any studio, like even an EA and Square Enix, I know they have like at least 3 different countries with studios in them.
Right.
I don't think they ever have a project that crosses their borders. It's like, this is game developed by Square Enix Montreal.
Right.
Exactly. Or something like that.
Yep.
I know there's a lot of like more indie, we'll call them middle indie. Like they're not really indie because a lot of the really early ones are normally in the same office. Like Minecraft, Astroneers, Satisfactory, all those are in the same office. But stuff like Hightail is being developed by lots of remote workers that are not in the same country as the core teams. So it's a, like I said, a weird hybrid that ends up happening with specifically Cloud Imperium Games.
Well, we will see. We'll see what all turns out. We'll be here for the ride, no matter what.
It's going to be interesting what content creation is like when we don't have.
Everybody's going to have to rethink. I know everybody's going to have to rethink what they're doing. Everybody, right? Unless you're just playing the game every day, we'll all be sitting at the table thinking about it.
Yep. HC Virgo's job is fine. Mike, you might need to find a new job.
All right, Nasmus. Thanks a lot, buddy. Okay. Boy, oh boy, yeah, some of us may have to look for new jobs, I tell you. All right, that's the letter from the chairman. If you guys have not looked at the letter from the chairman, please take a look at it. Lots of good stuff in there, okay? All right. So today's title for today's show, this is our final topic for today because we are winding down our time here, is this one here. Star Citizen, P.T.S.D. Now, this is one of the ones for me. This isn't from Spectrum. This is from Reddit. This is one of those Griff observations that I was talking to some people about this the other day. And I said, you know what, this will be something good to talk about. So I'm going to try to lay down the footwork for this. Okay. So what is Star Citizen PTSD? All right. This is Star Citizen PTSD, y'all. Okay. That's what I call it. Post-traumatic sandworm disappointment. Okay. That's what I'm calling it. All right. Post-traumatic sandworm disappointment. And I want to kind of give you a definition to what this is, because I don't just want to put that out there and not define what is post-traumatic sandworm disappointment. This is what it is. Okay. Now, I'm going to read this to you. Okay. A disorder in which a person has difficulty recovering after experiencing or witnessing an unexpected event. The condition may last months or years, with triggers that can bring back memories of the trauma accompanied by intense emotional and physical reactions. Symptoms may include anger or unwanted memories of the trauma, avoidance of situations that bring back memories of the trauma, heightened reactions, anxiety, or a depressed mood. Now, you may say, Griff, did you just make up that definition? Well, kinda. Believe it or not, I only changed 2 words in there. I only changed the word unexpected. I changed the word unexpected in the second line there, okay? And I changed the word anger, where it says symptoms may include anger in the 6th or 7th line. Everything else in there actually is the definition of PTSD, okay? So you say, okay, Griff, what are you saying? My question is this, and I'm going to give you the background. It's been interesting to me that in light of everything that we've evolved and watched happen with the development of Star Citizen over the years, the successes, the failures, the disappointments, the waiting, the frustration, all that stuff, right? That we seemingly, and I'm using the word seemingly, y'all, so I don't make it sound I'm saying this is definite. We're seemingly at a turning point. We are seemingly at the crux of finally getting a lot of what we've been waiting for, right? A lot of stuff that we've been waiting for seems to be right there, right? But the backers are having difficulty believing it, that they're struggling with the idea that we may actually be ready to move forward, right? That that the replication layer means something, that server meshing means something, that CIG is going to start delivering. I remember when we left CitizenCon, like I was really pumped up. I was like, wow, they said this, that, and the other. And not because they said stuff, but I think I said this before. What really got me was the fact that they put out dates, which CIG had been avoiding. You know, but dates have not only bitten Chris in the butt, and they've bitten anybody from CIG in the butt. There was never, don't ask when. That was their mantra. Don't ask when. All of a sudden now, they're saying when. And now that they're saying 6 months, 3 months, 323, 4.0, 1.0, I'm noticing that people are having difficulty believing it or accepting it or struggling with it or whatever. You know, there isn't like a, yeah, this is great. Instead, it's kind of like, we'll see. Hence the title, Post-Traumatic Sandworm Disappointment, because one of the things that people have brought up ever since 2016's CitizenCon, whenever it comes down to talking about CIG doing something, where's the sandworm? They showed us the sandworm and we never got that. That's always been the thing that's been thrown out there, right? And it's carried on for years. Some people never saw the sandworm and they even say it. So, you know, my question is, what is the struggle? What do you think the struggle is? The struggle just the fact that people have been disappointed so much that it's difficult to believe it? You know, there are still people saying, oh, it's not going to be out for another 10 years. It's not going to be, we won't see Star Citizen for another 10 years. In fact, I was watching one content creator the other day who read the letter from the chairman and everything else. And their statement said, all this letter is saying is that it's going to be another 2 years from now, which is the same thing that this content creator said 2 years ago from then, which is that it's always 2 years from now. By the way, in case y'all don't know it, that's a thing that content creators say all the time, because 2 years makes it safe, because the history of Star Citizen has been whenever they would show something at CitizenCon, it usually took about a year to 2 years for everything to come out. So that's kind of like a very easy prediction to make, right? That's like the thing to say. But CIG said 6 months, and they did it in 6 months. You know, CIG is saying they're going to do it within a year. It looks like they actually may do it in a year. So where's the trauma coming from? What is the difficulty? Is it just the fact that we've been burned so much? You know, twice bitten, once bitten, twice shy? Is that what it is? I mean, if it is, I'm not mad about it. I'm just saying, I'm just kind of curious because I've been so excited, but I've kind of stayed reserved because I'm still hearing folks who just ain't feeling it. You know, even with this letter, maybe it's because we've gotten too many letters in the past, you know? So anyway, let's bring some folks in. You guys give me your thoughts. I think Fist to Face was the first one down there. Fist, you there?
What's happening?
Hey.
All right. So my thing is, I'm going to say my opinion as far as how I feel. I'm a little bit more reserved now. I wasn't around for the sandworm situation, so
Okay.
I get it. I feel y'all pain.
Uh-huh.
I feel those pain. I understand because as we spoke before, to keep it short and brief, Anthem.
Okay.
You know how I feel.
Yeah.
You know
Yeah.
how I
Yeah.
feel.
Yeah.
Basically, so I can understand that that caution, that reserve, that saying where, hey, we're gearing up to do whatever, and things now, don't get me wrong, things have been progressively moving. I'm very surprised to see a jump gate and a jump through a wormhole from Stanton to Pyro so soon. I wasn't expecting that until possibly later after CitizenCon, to be quite honest with you. I was very shocked to hear that. So yeah, in a sense, I'm hopeful, but I'm still reserved.
Okay.
In the sense that because as I've known, I've said this, I have learned to place my expectations in a sense of control.
Okay. Okay. So
that's how I look at it.
You're reserved, but are you confident that things are, based on what you're seeing now, that CIG is going to deliver what they're saying, or are you still reluctant to believe that they're going to believe what they're doing?
I believe they're going to do it. I just don't know about timeline.
Okay. The timeline is concerned. Okay. Fair enough.
Right.
Fair enough. I'll buy that for $1. All right, Fist. Thank you very much, brother. All right. Let me bring in Pops in Space. If I can get him down here. There we go. Hey, Pops.
Hey.
Yes, sir.
All right. Okay. Sandworm Gate is what I'm going to call it. Okay. Like I said, I wasn't around then, but I've heard the rumblings and things like that. I think this is my personal feeling.
Okay.
I think the open development, which in my opinion, I think is really cool. But I don't think the majority of us knew how to take it. Also, I think I'm going to take from another game that I have, Ashes of Creation. This is from the gentleman that owned the owner of the game, and he was asked the question: would he do open development again? And his answer was no. And not because he didn't want to do it, but because of trying to I guess in his sense, he was trying to control the negative narratives that content creators were putting out there. Because, they're criticizing the game, and in a sense, they will make announcements and they'll say, this is what we're thinking of doing. What's your opinion? And man, they used to make videos. Oh, they don't know what they're doing. And he said, and he had to come back and say, well, and he's always a pleasant gentleman. And he would always say, we asked, what did you think? And it was never criticism that way. It was like, oh, you don't know what you're doing. And I don't think this game is going to come out. This game is just, the regular. So I think a lot of it has to do with the open development around this, and Sandworm Gate is exploded into this thing that it was never intended to happen from the developers. But my hat is off to CIG for Griff. I've never seen a game where you can post in a form and the actual developer answer. I've never seen that.
Okay.
And I think it's a good thing where they come in and they speak on it, and but what do you call it? We don't know how to take it.
Yeah.
We don't know how to respect it, but they seem to be handling it pretty well for going where they're going.
Okay.
So Sandworm Gate, I think, is an illusion.
Okay. All right.
Okay.
All right, Pops. All right. Thank you much. All right, let me bring in North End. Looks like North End is our last one for the day. North End?
Hey, sir.
Yes, sir.
So let me answer this question with another question. Do you think a lot of people are comparing this Sandworm like a ship. Can you imagine having the sandworm back in 2016 compared to them kind of quasi-new, still working on technology versus, or what the difference with the sandworm will be like from 2016 to now?
Ooh, that's always been a good question. What would the game have been like if it had come out in 2016 when CIG first said it, right? What would the sandworm have been like if it came out now? I'm going to counter your question with this. And I know I'm going to make some people mad when I say this. Gamers don't read.
Fact.
Now, let me tell you why I say that, since you mentioned the sandworm. At the beginning of the sandworm video, it opens up with a scene of us coming toward this moon or this planet, and it says Lear 3. It says that. It doesn't say Hurston, doesn't say Microtech. It says Lear 3. We don't have Lear. We don't have the Lear system. And if you know the lore of this game, stuff is lore based, right? Now, maybe some people say, well, they could have put the worm in on Daymar for us to test it. Well, they could have. Yeah, I guess. But yeah, I mean, yeah, that's all I can say about it. There were, let's say if there were 10 things in that video that they showed us with the sandworm, they gave us 8 out of 10, believe it or not. The sandworm was the one thing we didn't get, and the sandstorm was the thing we didn't get. Everything else in there we have. We have the sand people walking around, the costumes and stuff. We have the weapons they use. We have the Ursa rover. We have the Aquila. I can go down the list. We have the javelin that's broken down. We have all that stuff in the game. Nobody talks about those 8 items that are in the game. What they do talk about are the 2 items or the 1 item that isn't in the game. So, and I understand it. Trust me, I was there. I remember. I understand it.
Yep, and you can remember too is the fact that when I'm comparing ships, like say, let's use the BMM as an example. Imagine that coming out in 2016 compared now.
Oh,
but
God.
we have ships in the game. We don't have fauna in the game. I'm not counting the stone bugs and the turtles because they're more for your non-interactive voids that can could kill you. But so I don't have personally. We don't really have a standard to go off to say this is what could have been looking like back in 2016 versus what is going to come out in the Lear system, because it's just not here yet.
Very true.
And it kind of, I think it was either Fistface or Pops brought up that point, and it's true when I asked those guys at CitizenCon, they would not do an open development cycle again, just because of the negative narrative that content creators and fear and anger can fester quicker than positivity can. So I could see why they did that. It's like, these are things you can eventually will see, but people are like, we're going to see it this year. It was a miscommunication and misplaced hype for what it could be. And now it's so far back. Now we're kind of moving into, like you said, the PTSD of the sandworm.
Yeah.
But eventually, when I think when it comes out, it's going to look better now, or when it does come out, it will be a lot better or in a better state than it was if it were to be released in 2016, whether it was lower or not, and it was in Hurston, just by the animation. They were on older rendering. What was the other one? Back in 2016, did we have ray tracing back then? No,
we weren't in that. No.
Just as technology improves and they're bringing these entities and fauna in, it's going to represent a higher quality product.
Yeah.
Than if they were to release in 2016. So that's how I'm trying to keep myself grounded and be more excited and saying, if it doesn't come out now, or if it's not out now, it's going to be in a better state. Case in point, Freelancer or the Cutlass, right? Imagine people having the Idris or their BMM when they had their first design, especially on the Idris, when they show the first design, it would have been cramped.
Right.
So I think as everything has grown, I think they're going to also make the sandworm specifically probably bigger.
Yeah, you mentioned good points. I've said this a couple weeks ago. I can't wait till the Star Citizen documentary comes out, like the whole behind the scenes thing, because history is going to be what determines whether this was the best path to go. I'm sure there are things at CIG that they are going to say they could have done differently or taken a different route. Should it have been as open as it was? Should it have been more open? Should it have been less? Should it have been just a closed off development that gave us a couple trailers and we'll see you when it's done? how we'll feel after this is all said and done, when it's all over and we have a playable game that we all feel has got the features and everything, we may look back on this and say it wasn't so bad. And then we may look back on it and say, was it worth it? I don't know. I really don't know.
Oh, I can answer that right now,
yeah,
actually.
Yeah. Well, I'm speaking in general. I'm speaking in general. But go ahead.
Even in general, just look at Starfield.
Yeah.
Look at Anthem.
Yeah.
Any games where you like, oh, it took so long and it comes out.
Yeah.
But we didn't get to see where it was heading and get a better informed decision. Can you imagine just step back and just think Starfield, and they did inside development a year prior before it released? Do you think people were like, I want to buy this game? Probably not. Or
would the game have been different? For that matter.
Because people could have input.
Right, the impact. Yeah. It's again, in retrospect, those are the question which you just raised will be the things that we'll look back on and say, was it worth it? Now, and don't get me wrong, for some people, this journey has been worth it already. It's paid in full for them. They've built relationships, they've had fun, they've enjoyed themselves. For other people, they're still waiting to receive their return on their investment. And that's when the thing is finally finished. It's a little different for everybody. But I do think your point is well raised. Will we look back and say, thank God they took the time to do it? Or will we look back on it and said, that shouldn't have taken so long to do. They should have had that out a long time ago. I'm sure there are going to be people on both sides of the argument. I'm sure
it boils down to anybody what you want to get out of a project on anything. If you can look at the highlights and the lowlights, but embrace the highlights, you're going to be in a better position.
Okay, fair enough.
That's all.
All right, buddy. Thank you. All right, that's North End. And last but not least, we got my buddy. A little bit of madness is here. Hey, what's up, buddy?
I think I'm probably the only person that, maybe there's someone else here, but actually, I did watch the Sandworm presentation live. I'm actually that old in this development.
You're an old veteran like I am. Good. That's good.
Yes, I'm a grizzled, old, bitter PTSD traumatic person, I'm afraid to say. Yes, I am 100%. Yes, and rightly so. If you think about if you were to just list all of the things that were said that we were probably going to have by now, I think everyone of my generation and before is totally valid in saying they have PTSD trauma. Yeah. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
I'm
absolutely.
sorry, but if you just list them off, Answer the Call, 2016, you can reel off how many spaceships. They only just recently launched gave us the little hover bike or whatever it was, the X1. We're still waiting on the Ranger. If you think of just vehicles alone,
right?
And then you think of gameplay, what gameplay we were all hoping for by now that hasn't even materialized. NPCs still stand on chairs. There is such a massive wealth that stacks against CIG when they come to date telling. I'm sorry, they've got no bank of credibility when it comes to that side of things.
I don't think you should apologize. That's why I said I think the PTSD. I'm not saying it's fake. I think it's real.
It's real.
I think that there's been a lot of disappointment, and so even when something with good possibility shows up, it's still difficult for people to embrace it. Because there's been so much stuff in the past, right?
It's the way. It's not to say you can't cut it loose, though, Griff. You can cut it. I still have the eternal. There's still the part of me that kind of I want to put that memory in a cupboard and lock it away for good and say that doesn't. I want to just enjoy this, CitizenCon this year. I just want to enjoy this, but. There's always looking in the mirror. That old bit of history looks at you and goes, "It's not gonna happen, motherfucker. It's not gonna happen. It's not gonna happen. And then in terms of PTSD, like you were talking about, here's the thing: when I got a lot of old friends and old backers who backed even before I did in 2016, the first generation. Miserable G, he was one of the first. He was back in those early days as well. And we have PTSD trauma meetings when we talk, because we still talk about this game. And you can tell there's the guys who kind of they flinch when you even mention the word Star Citizen, because it's they're looking at there going, I spent £3,500 on this fucking game and I still have, and I still have, and they're twitching, and it's but then you start talking about some of the things that are coming out, and then you can see that they want to believe too, but they're still, you know what I mean? Shit. you know, and we have the conversations. We still talk about it. Me and, because I did the podcast with Miz a long time ago, and we still talk about it to this day. We talk about all of the stuff. We talk about all the shit and the good stuff, and we're so bored of talking about the same endless shit that we've been talking about for the last 10 years. That's why when this letter to the chairman, the bit where it talks about the Squadron, the server meshing, you can actually start to have different conversations for the first time in 10 years. You can talk about, is the gameplay going to scale up to the size of the players? Are we going to see a complete revolutionary change of the gameplay? Because the gameplay is going to break even more for 1,000 players, because we don't know. Like, imagine playing Jumptown with 1,000 people on a server all running to one location. It's going to be a carnage. We don't know how the game's going to handle that. So it's a whole different set of conversations we can have for the first time in 10 years, rather than talking about NPCs standing on chairs. So anyway, there you go. Sorry, I've ranted.
No, it's good stuff. You always bring good stuff, Madness. I appreciate it. Okay. Thank you, brother. All right. There goes Madness, who's confirmed that PTSD is real. And I believe it's real too. I believe it's real. I've seen it in the backers and some people's feelings and thoughts and attitudes about where things are, even in light of the positive things that we've seen recently. You know, I'm not saying that 6 months changes the world, guys. It's 9 years of this stuff, right? Or 10 years or 11 years of this stuff. And since the Sandworm, we're talking 6 years worth of stuff, or no, 6, 7, 8 years of stuff. It's a lot, you know, that's there. But, you know, to Madness's point, there you can see a glimmer, you can see a light, and there may be that chance to, as he put it, put those feelings away in a cupboard and be able to enjoy. And I really want to encourage people at this point, before I close out, I really want to encourage people to take a breather, take a breath back, and find opportunities to enjoy the game. You know, during the month of January and February, I literally took off like 6 weeks just to play the game. I didn't want to focus in on content creation, anything like that, because I needed that. And not because I was bored with the game. I just didn't need all the other stuff that came along with it, you know. And so I needed that. And so as we're going into this new year, into 2024, as we're approaching CitizenCon this year, as we're reading this letter, give yourself some room to let the tension go a little bit, the anxiety or the frustration, and just pay attention, just watch, and let's see what happens. Let's see if CIG is able to deliver the things that they've said. Let's see what happens when 3.23 comes out. Maybe that will spark something within all of us, right? That we'll finally have some things in our hands that are tangible, not just stuff we've seen on a screen, not just stuff that devs have talked about or Disco's talked about, but we actually have it in our hands, and maybe we'll feel a little bit differently when all that happens. So we'll see. Okay. All righty then. Let's close out today. I think that nobody else is in the room, right? Okay, nobody's here. Okay, let's close this out. Let's talk about what we've got coming up. As you guys know, today is PodSat Saturday. This is the day where we partner with other Star Citizen content creators to fill your day with nothing but Star Citizen information. So when we leave from here, we're going to send you over to the man himself, Paul Shelley, the Astropub, where he is already doing a review on ISC from this week. He's been talking about that, as well as he's going to be preparing for the Captain's Table, which is going to kick off at 6 p.m. Eastern time. So hopefully you'll be able to join him for that. Also after that, Paul usually sends folks over to the OGs of content creation for Star Citizen, Relay. The guys at Relay are a wonderful group who've been around a long time. They have great conversations. I'm sure they're going to have a lot of great conversations tonight. I'm going to have to make sure I tune in on the letter for the chairman, and I'm sure Paul's show will be covering some of that as well. So make sure you tune in on both of those content creators. Follow them, like them. They're very great informative shows for you guys to follow up with. Tomorrow on Soul Citizens, we're doing a show called Celebrations. Celebrations is going to be our review of going back to lore. We're going to be talking about the various annual events that take place in the Star Citizen universe. We've already been through a few of them. Red Festival has gone by. Coramore has gone by. We are now in Stella Fortuna. But there are plenty of other ones that we often don't think about. But there's like about 12 of them, 10 or 12. A lot of different things each year that are tied into lore that we do. Not just tied into ship sales, y'all. There is some benefit. And we're going to be talking about what those things mean in relation to gameplay, why you should be aware of them. Because some of these things in lore are going to be very important to your gameplay once you start spreading out into the persistent universe. So that's going to be tomorrow evening. Don't forget, Soul Citizen starts 1 hour earlier now. We start at 7 p.m. Eastern time. 7 p.m. Eastern time, not 8, 1 hour earlier, not because of daylight savings time. It's because we changed our start time so that we can start a little earlier and also not keep you guys up so late at night. So hopefully you guys will be able to join us for that. Let's see. Don't forget, Thursday night is going to be Soul Talk with Fast Cart. Don't forget, I mentioned the show at the beginning of the show. There was a Twitter X drop last night by CIG Star Citizen on their channel of something very, very cool that you need to go see if you haven't seen it. Someone even made mention of it earlier during this show that this is not in the game, and they showed us last night that they're going to put it in the game, and I think you're going to really freak out. We've been waiting for this for a long time, so check out that tweet that went out last night around 11 p.m. Central Time. Yeah, very, very cool stuff. Okay, alrighty, we're going to wrap things up here, and we are getting ready to set you guys up with a raid with the man himself, Paul Shelley, the Astropub. So when you guys get over there with Paul, make sure you give him our love. Don't forget to like, follow, subscribe to us, gang. We don't ever really emphasize that the way we should, but we would love to have more people follow. Tell folks about Soul Citizens. Tell them about Soul Talk. Tell them about Soul Voices. And as always, we appreciate you guys being here with us today. You guys really make the Soul Citizen community so, so great, and we appreciate you. Till then, hopefully we'll see you tomorrow, 7 p.m. Eastern time for celebrations. Until then, peace, love, and soul. Take care. Bye-bye.